the deal. If you're going to go to mediation, or if you're going to negotiate with the other side, you have to know what the outcome would be if you go to war. It's like diplomacy versus war. When two nations are negotiating, I think the one with the nuclear arms gets the better deal. So when people try to settle their disputes over property, over children, over alimony, over custody of a pet, they look to the precedent that we have in the past for guidance on what to do. And up until now, we had no idea what was going to happen in the state of New Jersey with two people battling over a pet.
But
now,
Gina, I mean, I'm sorry, I love pets, I do, but you can't, you know, a pet is not a child, and a pet is not a war. You know, a battle over a pet is not a war.
Exactly, but that's the point.
You know, there's a thing, if you need a third party to decide, there are people out there who I'm sure could decide it.
But it's
to
not
take
a
it to
lamp
a judge, to take it to the appellate division, to take it on and try to build precedent here, really just, you know, as I said before, opens this up.
There's a solution.
Could you flip a coin or draw straws?
I mean,
is that just too simple? Am I a simple person for saying that?
That's a very good point, because that's what they do sometimes with property. If you can't decide who keeps the dishes, who keeps the china, who keeps the furniture, some judges will say either draw it out of a hat, flip a coin. It's just a way to make the decision, because when two people just, and I do understand that when you're in a separation that you may not be able to work it out.
But at the same time,
Gina,
you don't have an emotional attachment typically to your dishes like you might to,
to
an animal.
But Lynn, let me tell you, in a divorce situation, people want to fight over everything, and they develop emotional attachments to family heirlooms, to, you know, what their grandmother gave them as a wedding gift. You know, people have different feelings about different things, and sometimes it's a pet, which we can all understand, I think, a little bit more, and sometimes, you know, it's a piece of china.
Well, this issue was actually raised by the appellate division, because sometimes people fake their attachment to an object in order just to anger the other side and to prolong the litigation and to make things cost more money. And the court was very clear that we have to sort those out. Are you fighting over the animal because you have a subjective attachment to it, or is it because you just want to get even with your ex? And those are a no-no, but there is a solution. I mean, the legislature could step forward and draft a law that gives us some guidelines, that says that these things have to be mediated or arbitrated, or that they're out of the courts. I mean, there is a solution, but up until now, there was just chaos. And I was getting mixed results all over the state, depending on which judge we were in front of.
Well, I think up until now, you know, no judges really wanted to deal with it. They wanted to treat it just like a dish or a piece of property. You know, they did not want to deal with these things, just for the reason, as we've been saying, just because they're so overburdened with the amount of litigation anyway.
Well, how many times have we done shows on frivolous lawsuits
Absolutely.
and asked people their opinions on that? And I wonder how many people would feel like this issue is frivolous, or whether, like so many of our Facebook friends and the folks out on the streets, they would say, absolutely, I agree with it. Which side of the issue do you stand on? And if, Gina, people look at you and say this is frivolous, there are so many bigger concerns in our society today, and no offense, rather than where Dexter, you know, lays down his little pug head. I mean, what do you say to them?
You either get it or you don't get it. And people who love animals get it, and if you've never had a pet, it's really hard to relate to something like this. And I don't think that the watch or grandfather's clock analogy really quite does it justice. I mean, look at that face. You know, look at him. He's such a cutie.
So you can't compete with that.
I'm shut out by Dexter.
You know, I used to be the editor of a newspaper, and I was taught from the publishers from the very, very beginning that if you put a kid's picture or a baby's picture or a dog's picture on the front page, you were going to sell out every single solitary week. And no matter what the lead story was, that was what everybody would remember. There is an emotional component here that is very hard to fight.
There is definitely a compelling emotional attachment, but you still have to put it in its proper perspective. I mean, you know, you can't compare a dog to a child. First of all, you know, people have biological connections to a child. There's a whole different scheme, and the child has an opinion sometimes about where they want to live. I mean, are we going to start investigating what the dog thinks and, you know, have a dog psychologist
Well, this dog's apparently a Steelers fan, so I'm not quite sure we're going to value his opinion.
I mean,
love you, sorry.
You know, it really can get quite ridiculous and expensive for the litigants. I mean, I know, reading about the story, I know you spent quite a bit of money on this, and, you know, it's another factor to take into consideration, the cost of that.
But to that end, it's your money, and if that's what you chose to spend it on, I would imagine that you say, I worked for it, I'll spend it any way I want.
Right.
Was it money well spent?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely, no doubts.
No doubt.
Okay. Where do you think this goes in terms of, it's already set a precedent, but will it have long-reaching effects on the legal system?
Oh, absolutely. I think that now that we have some guidance, we'll have a little bit more consistency. I mean, I've had several custody cases in the last few years. We've had some where the judge ordered the dog returned to the original owner. We've had some where the judge ordered some kind of sharing. And in this particular case, Doreen hadn't seen Dexter in 2 years, and her ex wouldn't even let her have visitation, not even a visit to the veterinarian to see if he was okay. So I think the judges are going to get some guidance here.
So you actually went 24 months without seeing Dexter. What was it like to get him back?
Overwhelming. I can't even put it into words when I first saw him.
Well, we wish you the best of luck with it. I know that you've been a good sport about the people who approach this tongue-in-cheek, but I wish you and Dexter continued happiness together, and I hope it all works out. Gina, it was great to have you back with us. Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. And Jen, you always take a tough stance, and we appreciate that. She is an animal lover. Let me point that out again.
I have my own pets.
If you guys have questions or comments, you can email me at tcn_IYC@ComcastNetwork.com. Find me on Facebook. Bye, Dexter.